सो अज प्रीमियर डेविड ईबी ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਲਈ ਗ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਤਾਜ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉੱਥੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਣੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫੈਬਰੂਰੀ 22 ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਜਟ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੇਨ ਮੁੱਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਊਗੀ। ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਲੀਕੇ ਇਸ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਵੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਲਈ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਮੇਨ ਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਗ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਤਾਜ ਆਏ ਆ ਤੇ ਹੁਣੇ ਬਰੀਫਲੀ ਸ਼ੋ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਬਾਹਰ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਡੈਮੋਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੋਜੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਾਂ ਐਂਟੀ ਸੈਕਸੁਅਲ ਓਰੀਐਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆਉਣਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਮੁੱਦੇ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਊਗੀ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਿੱਧੀ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਾਧਿਅਮ ਸਾਂਝਾ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੀ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ। CJ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਿੰਗ ਫਰਮ Grand Taj, Surrey, British Columbia.
This is the time when we need to build out our infrastructure to support a growing population. If we don't build out our infrastructure at this point, we risk going into a spiral of insufficient supports for people, which will cause people to either leave British Columbia or not come here, and will ultimately shrink our economy and shrink our prospects for the future. We also know that if we're going to attract and retain the people that we need to grow our economy, we need to have good services. We need to have good schools. People need to have access to family doctors or nurse practitioners. They need to know that when they go to hospital, they're going to get the care that they need. So we've made those choices to support families, to support people, to invest in infrastructure to build our province. And I look forward to talking with you about some of those specific initiatives. Right now, in terms of what British Columbians are feeling, despite our amazing economic performance compared with many other provinces, we had the fastest growing province in terms of GDP coming out of the pandemic, since the pandemic. We added more than 70,000 jobs in the last 12-month period. The vast majority of those jobs in the private sector, all of them full-time jobs. We have some of the highest wages in the country and still strong employment growth and low unemployment. Despite all of those headline indicators, the realities that people are feeling in their lives is that they're really squeezed, and a lot of that is due to high interest rates. So the budget is about providing support to families in this really unusual economic time that we're in. And I'm just going to run through a few of the key initiatives in the budget that relate to that before we get to your questions. The first is the BC Family Benefit. This is a benefit that existed in the previous budget. We increased the amount of the BC Family Benefit by 25%. We also increased the number of families able to access the benefit by 25% by increasing the income threshold for families who are eligible for it. This gives an average of $450 more a year for families who are eligible for it. We are ensuring that the federal carbon tax mandate is 100% returned to British Columbians through our climate action tax credit. So if a family of 4 received $890 last year, they will receive $1,005 this year. For electricity, this is a cost that people see regularly, and we want them to benefit from our low carbon electricity. Which is more affordable than many other ways of using energy in our province. We are providing $100 on average bill credit for families across the province. But this is also a benefit that supports business. Business will see an average of a $400 credit on their electricity bills over the year. For the first-time homebuyers program, recognizing that homes are more expensive now, we raised the threshold so that first-time homebuyers are exempt from property transfer tax for homes up to $835,000. And there is also a similar exemption for people who are moving out of a home into a newly built home. When they move from their existing home to a newly built home, they'll also be exempted from property transfer tax. The flipping tax is in the budget, and this is a 20% tax, and it's targeted at people who are buying and flipping homes without adding any additional units. So if you're a contractor, you buy a home, which is one unit, and you turn it into a duplex or a triplex or build a rental suite, you're not captured by the tax. But if you just buy a home and flip it, you are captured by the tax, and the goal is very straightforward. We just want to make sure that if a family is trying to buy a place to live, they're not competing with people who are just looking for an investment to flip. We want to give that family an advantage in the purchasing market. And then finally, for business, a lot of businesses struggling with higher costs related to everything from ingredients to needing to pay higher wages to attract the workers that they need. We have cut small business taxes. We have eliminated the employer health tax for businesses under $1 million in payroll. And for businesses of up to $1.5 million in payroll, they will see some reduction between $1 million and $1.5 million. They'll see some reduction in the employer health tax. And this is on top of the other work that we've done, cutting childcare fees, reducing ICBC rates, tolls off the bridges, ending MSP, the medical services plan, the special tax that only British Columbians paid, eliminating bridge tolls. All of these pieces are our attempts to make sure that we're supporting people at the cost of daily life wherever we can, because we know that people are struggling right now. With that, I'd like to turn it back to you for your questions. I look forward to hearing from you today. So there are two pieces to childcare that are really important. One is the cost that people pay, and one is whether or not they can get their kid into a space. There's a space available for them that's high quality, either before or after school care or for full-time childcare. So our program focuses on both. When we formed government, the average cost for childcare was $57 a day. That cost is down to $17 on average, $17 a day. That's a very significant reduction for families in terms of the fees that they're paying. And we do have, you're right, it's about 14,000 $10 a day spaces. But we also have tens of thousands of families that are paying less than $10 a day through additional subsidized programs that we have. So it's not a complete picture of who's paying $10 a day. We're going to continue this work. One of the first things I did when I was sworn as Premier was fly out to Ottawa because of my belief that British Columbia isn't getting our fair share of federal funding for various programs. We're showing some success on this. We were the first government to enter into a childcare agreement with the federal government. We were the first to enter into a healthcare agreement with the federal government to get additional healthcare dollars. And now they're talking about additional pharmacare. We're going to be, I hope, one of the first governments to enter into agreement with the federal government so that British Columbians can afford the drugs that they need to stay healthy. And so my goal is to get more and more money out of the federal government. I think we've been successful on the childcare piece. And one of our biggest challenges, frankly, around childcare is to be able to open those additional spaces. We can even build the physical spaces, but the workers, the trained workers to do the childcare in those facilities has been a huge challenge. So we've been looking at things like the provincial nominee program. How do we attract more childcare workers using provincial nominee program? We've opened new childcare training spaces. We've increased wage subsidy for childcare workers to attract more people into the sector. And that is our big focus, is getting more workers into the sector because we do require training. We do require them to be skilled so that the kids are safe. And that's our big limiter in terms of being able to open the additional space that we need. We worked, well, the federal government announced numbers for British Columbia. We had a lot of anxiety from the public post-secondary schools, the universities and the colleges, that they would be negatively affected by that in two ways. One is a reduction in the number of students, which could reduce their funding, which would cause them to reduce other programming. And the other is a chill. Even if the numbers were the same, that international students might think Canada's not welcoming anymore and that they would choose to go to another country. We've been able to move quickly to reassure the public post-secondary schools that yes, their numbers are going to be maintained. And we're working with them to get out offer letters as quickly as possible so that British Columbia is front of mind for international students when they're accepting offers. And if they've heard rumors, they have a letter in their hand that says they're still welcome in British Columbia. The area where we're going to see the impact is on the private side, especially private schools that have dramatically increased the number of students at their institutions over the last couple of years. They're going to face the greatest amount of pain here. The reduction is about 25% for private institutions in terms of the number of students that they can take in. And the biggest amount of that 25% is going to be carried by those institutions that have gone from, say, 3 students 4 years ago to 200 students in the most recent year. Dramatic increases in the number of student population. So that will have some effect in curbing some of these actors that have increased their student numbers without any supports, without the staffing, without the educational requirements, just in itself. But also, we're working with PICTIA, the agency that oversees accreditation for private schools, to tighten up our requirements. We're also information sharing with Ottawa around problematic actors, and you'll of course be familiar with the work that we've already done around immigration agent registration that's required in British Columbia to ensure higher standards. So we are rolling that work out now. The Ministry of Post-Secondary and Future Skills is doing that work right now to ensure that those places that just open up in a strip mall, put up a sign and admitted hundreds of students, and now those students are living in overcrowded conditions. They're not getting the support that they need. They're moving here from somewhere else. They don't know how to get started, and they're not getting the support that they need in British Columbia, that we're going after those bad actors. We have seen two levels of significant increase in population in British Columbia. One is people moving here on a permanent basis to live in British Columbia. It's about the 500,000 people over 2 years I was talking about in the health system that we can measure and know that our population is increasing by that. There's also the temporary foreign worker and international student population, which isn't necessarily captured in that number, which may be close to a similar number. And so because of that massive growth, there's no question, we are seeing pressure on hospitals, on schools, especially in Surrey and the Fraser Valley, and other critical infrastructure like highways, transit, and so on. It's just indisputable. The challenge that we face is we need a certain amount of this population in order to respond to these challenges, to help us build the province, to help us deliver healthcare, to help us deliver services. We've always thrived on a strong and welcoming province for people that want to build a good life here. So making sure that we're able to build out our infrastructure to support a growing population is a huge priority of mine. I think it is a mistake to blame international students for the challenges that we face around infrastructure in the province. These are students who are incredibly vulnerable, who need our support to be successful here in British Columbia. And that's why we're also moving to ensure high standards for the schools that are admitting international students, with supports that they need and predictability around tuition, including our public post-secondary schools, but also really building out the infrastructure that we have in the province, new hospitals, new housing, new transit, to make sure, as I said in my introductory remarks, that the province is grappling with this in a positive way, that we're able to respond to the level of interest we see from people wanting to move to British Columbia. First of all, to your introductory remarks, I think that's absolutely true. One of the things I've noticed about being in the job of Premier is it seems almost designed to insulate you and prevent you from being in contact with people on the front lines who are delivering the services or who know what's going on. So it's very important to me. You'll see me doing town halls. I did one last night. Telephone town halls, we can reach as many people as possible, but also in community, taking questions from the floor, Surrey Board of Trade, because I want to hear directly from people about what's actually going on. And sometimes I think people also think the media are part of this, that insulate government, that prevent certain questions from being asked, and so people are very suspicious of media right now as well. It's a very unusual time that we're in. On your specific question about education curriculum and the people out front and anxiety among parents, I really put it into two groups. You know, one group is spreading misinformation, is targeting vulnerable parents who English is a second language. Maybe they've just moved to British Columbia, and they're being told the most outrageous things by people who are trying to build a political base. And there's very clearly a strong overlap between those people and the people who fought all of the COVID vaccine protocols that kept our economy going and kept us safe through the pandemic and helped us recover economically quickly. There's a guy who took his tractor, driving down Highway 1, ramming it into police cars. Brand new tractor, beautiful tractor, probably cost him $250,000, crashed it, got knocked out and broke his back. Like, I'm not going to be able to convince this guy that there's not some great conspiracy involving the schools wanting to turn his kids gay. This guy is clearly, I don't know what's going on for him, but it's far more complex than anything that I can say. But it's people like that that have given huge anxiety to these parents. What's happening in the school? I tell you, as a parent, I send my kid to school, he comes home, what happened at school today? How was it? It's good. What'd you learn today? Oh, Bud, what'd you learn today at school? Like, what happened all day today? You know, the kid's he's a wonderful kid, but my God, I don't, I don't know what's happening at the school. And so for a parent, that's trying to grapple with that, and then they hear this person saying, all the teachers are trying to turn your kids gay or whatever it is that they're saying, who do you believe? Maybe it's true. I don't know. I just moved here. Is that how things work here? And so for those parents, really encourage them to, where they have the language skills to do so, talk to the teacher. Call the teacher, set up a meeting, go to the class, look at the materials. Say, what happens here? Like, I'm hearing that this is what happens at school. Is this what happens? I'm hearing these are the books you're using at school. Is that true? Do you have these books? And ask those questions. This is something that parents should be doing. It's their kids' education. For those parents that don't have those language skills, or hopefully the cultural groups can support in this. The BCMA, the NCM can help in coordinating these opportunities for teachers and parents to talk. It's so important. Education is a critical basic skill to be able to be successful in British Columbia society. And those people want to shut kids off from the access of going to a public school where there's people from all around the world, all different beliefs and understandings about how things work, learning how to work together and move things forward. That's what will make our province successful. For those parents that are still uncomfortable, we still support homeschool options. We still support funding for religiously oriented schools. But I am a strong believer in public education. That's why my kids all go to public schools because they need to learn how to meet with and work with and talk with all kinds of different people that have all kinds of different understandings. And I think the benefits are huge from that. So I really want to encourage parents to go ask those questions, get comfortable so that we can be a stronger province. This is a really serious set of allegations the Chief of Victoria has brought forward. It's important to know the context of the discussion in Victoria. The Greater Victoria School Board has decided not to allow police officers to be liaisons in the schools. The chief is in a conversation with the school board about the wisdom of that decision and some of what the chief is seeing that liaison officers help with. I've spoken with police officers that have been in those jobs, that have supported kids in exiting from gangs and prevented kids from being recruited into gangs. I understand the importance of these liaison programs and the difference that they can make in kids' lives. I understand why the chief is advocating for it. We also do have confidence in local school boards to respond to the local realities of the school and make the decisions that they need to make. They're democratically accountable. They'll have to explain those decisions at election. But in terms of our funding, we have dramatically increased funding for police to the point that we actually can't fill all of the roles we would like to fill that we have funded for RCMP, for example. We're trying hard to get the recruits that we need for the roles that we're funding in the province. We're going hard at the gangs. We're seizing their property. We're seizing Hells Angels clubhouses. We're seizing cars. We're seizing homes. The biggest organized crime bust in a long time was made recently by the RCMP in January. And it was interestingly seizure of contraband tobacco and liquor and cannabis, as well as guns. And so this work is going to really continue and we're going to ramp it up. We're going to find other ways to disrupt the gangs. The Minister of Public Safety is working on that. We're going at the high end. At the low end at the schools, we have the Erase anti-gang program. But that middle level of gangster to find ways to disrupt that lifestyle is critically important as well. So the Minister for Public Safety is looking at options around that as well. Biggest strengths of our province is that we've been a place that's welcoming and open to people from around the world, and they leave their disputes and wars and the violence that they came from at home, and they come to British Columbia and they build a life together. Working together makes us stronger. And anything that threatens that, we need to be really careful about. And so there are so many events right now that have caused so many threats to this open, diverse society that we value in British Columbia. Everything from, allegations of the Indian government interfering with local diaspora movements here in British Columbia, up to and including potentially the killing of an activist. Iranian government, allegations that they're involved in diaspora manipulation from their end. Chinese government, allegations that because of their bad relations with the government of Canada, interfering with people expressing concern about human rights issues in China or issues around Taiwan. Those are all threats to our ability to work together, foreign governments attempting to reach into what we enjoy here in British Columbia. And there are also challenges at home. You know, we saw the horrific attacks of October 7th in Israel. And now we see the death and destruction in Gaza. People want to speak out about it. They want to express concern about it. These are huge and long-standing divisions. And we saw a motion at UBC that proposed to kick the Jewish student house, Hillel House, off of campus, just unbelievably anti-Semitic. And we've seen people who speak out about what's happening in Palestine threatened with losing their jobs and other retaliation. My goal as Premier is to make sure that we're holding the space here in British Columbia for people to be able to engage in free speech, including the people up front, that they're able to stand up and speak out about what they want to speak out about, and that people are safe here to do that, and that we're fighting racism and discrimination and any attempt to say that someone is less welcome in our province than somebody else because of their race, because of their religion, because of where they come from. And so that's what I see my job as Premier in this place, but I entirely agree with you that this is a time of huge division, and especially as we watch the American presidential election play out, we've got to hold what's precious, because ultimately that will keep us stronger in the long run here in British Columbia. And there are political parties that want us to embrace that culture war, and it will not make us richer or safer.
Are you reaching out to the different communities on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a number of different programs and initiatives in place. I've been meeting with, specifically on Israel-Palestine, I've been meeting with Muslim leaders. I've got meetings this week with rabbis from the Jewish community, keeping those lines of communication open, keeping those lines of understanding open. And we've been working with the federal government. I've been trying to get briefings from them about attempts at foreign interference here in British Columbia. I've recently received my top secret clearance. I have yet to receive the information that I'm hoping for so that we can support Elections BC and other key actors here in British Columbia to protect British Columbians from international foreign interference. So I was at the Surrey Board of Trade just a couple days ago, sat with the mayor. At that, the mayor and I, in my opinion, she may have a different perspective, we agree on 99% of issues. 1% of issues, which is a big one, the Surrey Police Service, continues to be an obstacle to us doing the work together that I really want us to do to support Surrey as a fast-growing community. We've done our best to answer the mayor's concerns. We took the Surrey Police budget, gave it to an independent auditor, said, tear this budget apart, tell us, is it reliable? Will there have to be a 20% tax increase on people in Surrey and businesses to pay for this? And the auditor came back and said, it's a credible budget. It is within Surrey's allocation. There doesn't have to be a tax increase. We said, we'll dedicate $150 million to Surrey to support the transition. They haven't touched that money. We gave almost $100 million to Surrey under the Growing Communities Fund, which they said they were going to dedicate to the police transition. They haven't spent any of that money to the best of our knowledge. And so the frustration that I have is we've addressed the financial concerns. We've been very clear. We are going to the Surrey Police Service. We are not going back to the RCMP. And we just need to keep going on this. So we have put an administrator in place for the Surrey Police Service to ensure that this continues to move forward. We are working with the RCMP. And that's what's going to happen. The mayor is waiting for a court challenge that she's going to lose. Unfortunately, it's a waste of money for Surrey taxpayers, as it is a waste of money to drag this out longer than it needs to. But I am hopeful that on the other end of that the mayor and I will be able to work together on what matters for the residents of Surrey, which is moving past this, ensuring they get good policing services, good schools, good housing, and the fastest growing city in our province is supported with what it needs. In terms of our growing population, what you see in the budget is the biggest capital spend in the province's history. Hospitals, schools, electrical infrastructure, other infrastructure to support our growing population. It's just a reality that we have to build this. We have more announcements to come in terms of how we're supporting fast-growing communities in these key areas. You know, there was just a task force on housing that was established by the federal government. It was led by a conservative and by a liberal. It was a multi-party committee, and their recommendations about building the housing we need are exactly what British Columbia is doing, allowing more than one unit in single-family neighborhoods, getting rid of red tape around transit, around housing built near transit stations, allowing additional density, and having faster approval times and permits. So we're doing all of those pieces to build the housing that we need. The numbers are growing in a way that is putting pressure. It's just not deniable. It's just the reality on our schools, on our hospitals, on the roads, which is why we have to do this building. a basic understanding, I think anyone who's been in the hospital understands, is that the doctor comes in and sees you and leaves, but it's the nurses who are doing the day-to-day care. So in terms of your quality of the experience in the hospital, if one nurse is looking after 10 patients or one nurse is looking after 3 patients, your experience is really going to vary in the hospital. And this is the nurses' experience as well. So that's why in our latest round of negotiations with them, they said, look, we got to figure out a way, because the nurses who are in the hospital, one nurse, 10 patients, one nurse, 15 patients, whatever it is, they're stressed out, they're burning out, they're leaving, and things are getting worse. So how do we make sure that we're supporting nurses when they have to deal with more patients than they really should be dealing with? How do we provide them with a guarantee that government is going to be working towards that ratio and not just saving money by providing fewer nurses, and maybe you burn out, but we'll replace you with another nurse? And so we looked around the world, and they said, look, there's a model in New Zealand and Australia called ratios. We think it would really work. You guarantee us that we're going to hit those ratios, but if you don't, any savings that you have go back into supporting nurses. So you don't save money by providing fewer nurses. There's no incentive for a health authority to understaff a nursing line, because they'll have to pay the money anyway around supports for nurses. That was the agreement that we struck. So our target is obviously to hit the ratios. We want more nurses on the floor. But in terms of support for nurses, that support is going to be there either way. If they have to work with more patients than what we've committed to them, there'll be additional supports for them, for those nurses that are doing that work, so that we retain them and we add nurses as we go forward. And it's working. We added 100 times more nurses than Alberta did last year. And we think that if we can offer these kinds of guarantees, look, if we're not able to hit the ratio, at least you're going to have the other supports, that we're going to be a more attractive place to work than a place that says, look, if we're not going to hit the ratios, we're going to save money, and maybe or maybe not, we're going to get there. We're thinking that we're offering the best environment for nurses to work in Canada, and that will attract more nurses to come to Canada to work in our hospitals and healthcare environments. There are a lot of people who are renting who would rather buy because either financially they have to, or they can't find something that's appropriate for them. We would like for them to be able to get into the housing market because it frees up rental housing generally. So that's why we did the first-time home buyer credit. But we also understand that people have to rent. So we have this year for the first time a renter's tax credit, $400. If you own a home, you get a property tax credit. But if you're a renter, you don't get anything. Just out of fairness, we've done a renter's tax credit as well, recognizing that people have to rent for longer. But our real focus around renters is to build more rental housing. The biggest challenge around the availability or the cost of rent is that there's just not that many places to rent. And so those places that are available, the rents are getting higher and higher. And so what we've done is in this budget, we have $5 billion in partnership with the federal government to build attainable middle-income rental housing on publicly owned land, school board land, health authority land, provincial and municipal government land. That will actually be attainable for middle-income people, around 30% of their income, eligible for people that earn up to $200,000 a year. This is truly a middle-income initiative. In addition, the changes that we've made around being able to build more than one unit on a single-family lot, we believe this will allow the private market and private contractors to open up more housing for first-time home buyers and for renters. And we also have a program, if you are a homeowner, where we're supporting people with some of the costs of converting a basement into a basement suite or adding a suite in your home to be able to rent, because we would like for more people. It's much cheaper for us than building the place directly. We ask for a commitment for 10 years that you're going to rent at a slightly more affordable rate. And it's a bit of an experiment for us to see if it works, to open up additional rental. We've had a huge level of interest in it. I think we're going to be able to use the program quite successfully. But asking homeowners to open up those rental suites and supporting them in doing that. One of the things that we've seen around the property transfer tax waiver for first-time home buyers is because the value of homes has gone up, fewer and fewer buyers are eligible for the waiver of the property transfer tax. And so as a result, government's expenditures have gone down. We just haven't had as many people using it because the home value has to be below a certain threshold for you to qualify for it. So what we've done is we've moved up the threshold, which we expect will keep spending more or less the same, but allow more people to qualify. So keep it about the same as historic levels, but because home prices are more expensive, the threshold recognizes that. So we can have roughly the same number of people, a slight expansion, who are able to access the program.
Welcome, Premier. Last question. The hardest
No
one.
pressure. Yeah, no pressure. It's hard to go first, but it's also very hard to go last. Yeah.
So anyways, your budget came out in 24-25. Deficit is 7.9 billion, so it's ballooned, and supposed to be 5.9 billion. And as you said, it's election year, and more goodies will be announced. So is there any plans to balance the budget, or will we leave that to the next generation?
Okay, thanks. So this is a really important question. I think it'll be probably one of the questions canvassed during the election campaign. I'm hearing the BCUP and the Conservative Party saying that they are prioritizing, I assume, because it's the only way you could deliver it, cuts to services and not building the infrastructure that our province needs for a growing population in order to reduce the budget. That's a choice that they would make. We are making a different choice. We can't continue to rely on our grandparents or our parents' infrastructure that they built. We need to build again in our province. We need to build roads, transit, schools, hospitals. This is a significant expense. As you all know, the costs of construction, if you've done a renovation, have gone up quite dramatically. But it's just not an option for us not to do it. It would have been cheaper had it been done before, but it wasn't done before, so we got to do it now. The second piece is around the operational spending. The vast majority of the increase in operational spending is around healthcare. We have a growing and aging population, and those healthcare workers were in a competition, unfortunately, with other provinces across Canada, as well as internationally. For those healthcare workers, we've had to increase salaries quite dramatically for healthcare workers to be competitive in cancer and other areas. But also, there are some one-time supports for families to recognize that we're in a period of high interest rates right now. All the experts tell us that interest rates are going to be coming down, but the families are facing the cost right now. So we have declining deficits over time. We will get back to balance. But for this moment, British Columbians need the support. Important to remember that 6 of the last 7 budgets, we balanced. This situation that we're in of low global commodity prices, global inflation, and high interest rates is impacting British Columbian families and also impacting our provincial budget. But we have because we were responsible in those other years, we're able to do that this year. Our debt to GDP ratio is less than half of Ontario's and Quebec's. It's a key measurement by economists about the financial health of a province. And it's because we were careful in those other years that we're able to provide that support now.
Sidhu, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah. So my question a little different, Premier, and we all concerned about Canada-wide, but not, if not international. The opioid crisis and the deaths happening in British Columbia, 6 to 7 people dying every day. The numbers are increasing for overdose. Is there any specific plans to address that issue?
Thanks. Thanks for the question. It's an awful thing that people are losing loved ones to drug overdose in our province. Just one correction, we are seeing slight reductions in deaths to overdose. It's not an acceptable level, but I just want to point out that we're at least trending down, which is good, but the numbers are still way too high. We are watching carefully other provinces, other jurisdictions. Are there other things that we could be doing? We're investing historic levels of investment in treatment beds for people struggling with addiction, that they're able to get the help that they need seamlessly through the emergency room in one of our initiatives that we hope to roll out to the whole province. But also we took beds that used to need tens of thousands of dollars to pay for and brought them so they're available to all British Columbians in partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association. It's a really, really challenging issue. I know that people are suggesting that British Columbia should look at Alberta or look at Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan saw a 30% increase in the number of deaths. Alberta saw a 25% increase in the number of deaths. There is no jurisdiction that has the easy answer about this right now. We're all looking to each other. What are you trying? Is it working? We're trying different things, absolutely. But our goal is to drive down the deaths, as well as the people who don't die but survive with a serious brain injury, who are in permanent care or who are walking around our streets walking wounded. and causing street disorder because they have a serious brain injury. It's a huge crisis in our province, and we're going to keep working to try to drive down those numbers. Thank you.
Scheduled date, or it will be?
Yes, it will be on the scheduled date.
Scheduled
Absolutely.
Date, so it's not
Yeah.
early.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know it's very disappointing to everyone. It's the scheduled date. I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to it.
Mrs. Singh, you're a Minister of Education, and there's a lot happening. Lately, you announce some funding. Tell us. ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੋ।
ਜੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਨਾਲ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ 3.5 ਲੱਖ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਆਈ ਹੈ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ। ਸਰੀ ਦਾ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਦੇਵਾਂ, ਓਨਲੀ ਸਰੀ ਇਟਸੈਲਫ ਅਸੀਂ $750 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹਾਂ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ 6 ਨਵੇਂ ਸਕੂਲ 13 ਐਕਸਪੈਂਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਫਰਾਈਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਬਜਟ ਤੇ ਤਹੀਨ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਵਾਂ ਐਲੀਮੈਂਟਰੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ 900 ਸੀਟ ਦਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਪਲੱਸ 500 ਸੀਟ ਦੀ ਐਕਸਪੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਇਨ ਗ੍ਰੈਂਡਵਿਊ ਹਾਈਟਸ ਸੈਕੰਡਰੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਰੀ ਦੀਆਂ ਲੋੜਾਂ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਸ ਲੋੜਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਕਰ ਸਕੀਏ ਇਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਵਚਨਬੱਧ ਹੈਗੇ।
ਸੋ ਮਿਸ ਸਿੰਘ, ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਪੀਟਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਹੈ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਥੋੜਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਮੇ ਬੀ 3 ਈਅਰ 5 ਈਅਰਸ, ਪਰ ਰਾਈਟ ਨਾਓ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੋਰਟੇਬਲ ਦਾ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡੀਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ?
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਜੀ, ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸੀਗੀ, ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਨਾ ਇਨਵੈਸਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਹੀ ਲੋੜ ਸੀਗੀ। ਉਹ ਪੋਰਟੇਬਲਸ ਤਦ ਤੋਂ ਹੀ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਬਣ ਗਏ। ਜਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਏ 2017 ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ 10,000 ਸੀਟਾਂ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ 12,500 ਸੀਟਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੰਡ ਕਰ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹਾਂ। ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਾਬਤਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਨਵੇਂ ਇਨੋਵੇਟਿਵ ਵੇਜ਼ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਫੈਬਰੀਕੇਟਿਡ ਕਲਾਸਰੂਮਸ ਦਾ ਐਲਾਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ। ਸਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ 900 ਸੀਟਾਂ ਮਿਲ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਫੈਬਰੀਕੇਟਿਡ ਕਲਾਸਰੂਮਸ ਦੀ। ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਂ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨਲ ਬਿਲਡਿੰਗ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਘਟਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਫੈਬਰੀਕੇਟਿਡ ਲਾਸਟ ਈਅਰ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਸੈਪਟੰਬਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਸੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਵੇਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਨਵੇਂ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਲੱਭ ਕੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਕੂਲ ਨੂੰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਘਟਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਸਕੇ। ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਜੈਕਟ ਆਫਿਸ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਤੋਂ ਜਲਦੀ ਲੈਂਡ ਅਕਵਾਇਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੈਗਾ। ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਹੈ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਕੂਲ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਸਕੂਲ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹਦੀ ਲਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਘਟਾਉਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਹੈ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰੀ ਸਟਾਫ ਦੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ।
ਸੋ ਸਰੀ 'ਚ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਨਰੋਲਮੈਂਟ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਕਾਫੀ ਹਾਈ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਪੈਸਿਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕਾਫੀ ਘੱਟ ਆ। ਤੋ ਇਹਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਰਟ ਟਰਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਫੈਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਲਾਸਰੂਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕਰਨੇ ਆ ਉਹਦੀ ਕੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਲਾਈਨ ਹੈ? ਜੀ
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ, ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਾਸਟ ਈਅਰ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੇ ਸੀਗੇ। ਤੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਨਵਾਂ ਸਕੂਲ ਈਅਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਏਗਾ 2024-2025 ਲਈ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਉਹ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਸਰੀ 'ਚ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ
ਸੋ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਤਿਆਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਜੀ?
ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਡੀਸ਼ਨਸ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਫੈਬਰੀਕੇਟਿਡ ਕਲਾਸਰੂਮਸ ਦੀਆਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ 900 ਸੀਟਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ। ਦੈਟ ਵੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਰੈਡੀ ਇਨ 3 ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਸਕੂਲਸ। ਪਰ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੇ ਇਨੋਵੇਟਿਵ ਆਈਡੀਆਜ਼ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਵੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਰੀ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਤਾਦਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕੀ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਸਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣਾ ਘਰ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਔਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਬੇਸਡ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਉਹ ਨੰਬਰ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਯਕੀਨਨ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਨੰਬਰ ਆਇਡੈਂਟੀਫਾਈ ਕਰਨਾ ਵੀ ਔਖਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਰੀ ਵਰਕਰਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੰਬਰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕਲੀਅਰਲੀ ਡਿਫਾਈਨ ਕਰਨਾ ਕਈ ਵਾਰ ਔਖਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਪਰ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਰੀ ਦੀ ਹਰ ਸਾਲ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ 2000 ਬੱਚਾ ਸਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਵੇਂ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ ਅਵੇਅਰ ਆਫ ਇਟ। ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ ਨਾਲ ਰੈਗੂਲਰ ਬੇਸਿਸ ਤੇ ਰਾਬਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਵਰਕਿੰਗ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਫੀਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ।
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਦਾ, ਸੋ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੀ ਬੜਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਕਪੈਸਿਟੀ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਹੈਗਾ। ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਰੈਂਟਲ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਖਿਆਲ?
ਜੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ, ਆਈ ਨੋ ਕਿ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੇ ਕਦਮ ਚੱਕ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ 2 ਸਾਲ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੈਪ ਲਾਈ ਹੈ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਨਵੇਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਵੇਟ ਇੰਸਟੀਟਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਖੋਲਣ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਦੈਟ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਕੈਪ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਵੀ ਵਾਂਟ ਦ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਟੂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਟੇਬਲਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਵੀ ਨੋ ਕਿ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਆਰ ਅ ਬਿਗ ਐਸੈਟ ਫॉर ਆਵਰ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਕਿੱਲ ਸੈਟਸ ਵੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੈਂਟ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਰਿਲੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਪਰ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ ਫੇਸ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਇਨਫਰਾਸਟ੍ਰਕਚਰ ਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਅਸਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੋ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਵੀ ਨੀਡ ਟੂ ਸਟੇਬਲਾਈਜ਼ ਦ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਬਿਫੋਰ ਵੀ ਸਟਾਰਟ ਐਕਸੈਪਟਿੰਗ ਮੋਰ
ਮੇਰਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਮਿਸਿਸ ਸਿੰਘ ਇਜ਼ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੋਜੀ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਰੌਲਾ ਪਿਆ ਇਹ ਬਾਹਰ ਡੈਮੋਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਖੜੇ ਹੈ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਐਂਡ ਦੈਟਸ ਦੇ ਹੈਵ ਰਾਈਟ ਟੂ ਡੈਮੋਸਟ੍ਰੇਟ ਐਨੀਵੇਜ਼ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀ ਖਿਆਲ ਹੈ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ
ਜੀ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਗਲੈਡ ਯੂ ਆਰ ਆਸਕਿੰਗ ਦਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਦ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਇੱਛਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੀ ਐਜ਼ ਅ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਂ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਤੇ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬੱਚਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਕੂਲ 'ਚ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਧੱਕਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਪਗੜੀ ਪਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਰੰਗ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਬੱਚੀ ਹਿਜਾਬ ਪਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਬੱਚੀ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਦਾ ਸੈਕਸ਼ੂਅਲ ਓਰੀਐਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦੀ ਜੈਂਡਰ ਆਇਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਬੇਸ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਧੱਕਾ ਨਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ 2S LGBTQS+ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਹਿਸਟੋਰੀਕਲੀ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਇਹ ਅੰਕੜੇ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਤੇ ਸੋਜੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਸਟ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਲਾਈਕ ਐਂਟੀ ਬੁਲਿੰਗ ਟੈਕਟਿਕ ਰਿਸੋਰਸਿਸ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਟੀਚਰਸ ਕੋਲ ਉਪਲਬਧ ਹੈਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਟੀਚਰਸ ਕੋਈ ਧੱਕਾ ਕਰਨ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾ ਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੀਅਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੂਜੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਧੱਕਾ ਕਰਨ ਇੱਕ ਇਟਸ ਅ ਸੇਫ ਵੈਲਕਮਿੰਗ ਸਪੇਸ ਇਨ ਦ ਸਕੂਲਸ ਇਹ ਸੋਜੀ 1 2 3 ਹੈ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਖਦਸ਼ੇ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗਲਤ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਪੇਰੈਂਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਹੀ ਕਹੂੰਗੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਸੋਜੀ 1 2 3 ਬਾਰੇ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਦੇ ਟੀਚਰ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪਰਕ ਕਰੋ ਜਾਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਐਂਡ ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਗੈਟ ਦ ਕਰੈਕਟ ਇਨਫੋਰਮੇਸ਼ਨ
ਯੂਰ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਕਮੈਂਟਸ
ਜੀ ਮੈਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹੂੰਗੀ ਕਿ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਜ਼ ਅ ਪ੍ਰਾਇੋਰਟੀ ਫॉर ਆਵਰ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਹੱਤਵ ਹੈ ਨਾਟ ਜਸਟ ਇਨ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਡੇ ਪਰ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਲਈ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਪਨੀਰੀ ਤਿਆਰ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਕਮਿਟਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਟੂ ਫੰਡ ਦੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਟੂ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਲੈਣ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸੇਫ ਐਂਡ ਸੇਫ এনवायरमेंट ਔਰ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਈ ਮੇਰੀ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਵਚਨਬੱਧਤਾ ਹੈ
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
ਸੋ ਅੱਜ Premier of British Columbia, Mr. David EB ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਊਥ ਏਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕੀਤੀ ਤੇ ਉਸ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੁੱਛੇ ਗਏ ਈਦਰ ਇਟ ਵਾਜ਼ ਏ ਸੈਕਸੁਅਲ ਓਰੀਐਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਐਂਡ ਜੈਂਡਰ ਇਨਐਕੁਆਲਿਟੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਂ ਬਜਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਸਕੂਲਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੋਰਟੇਬਲਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹਸਪੀਟਲਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਭੀੜ ਲੱਗੀ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਦੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਆਨਸਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਬਜਟ ਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਬਜਟ 7.9 ਬਿਲੀਅਨ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡੈਫੀਸਿਟ ਬਜਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬੈਲੈਂਸ ਕਦੋਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਪੇ ਕਰਨੀ ਆ ਪਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੋਲ ਹੁਣ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੈ ਟੂ ਬਿਲਡ ਏ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ ਇਨਫਰਾਸਟ੍ਰਕਚਰ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਦ ਕਾਸਟ ਇਨਕਰੀਜ਼ਡ ਇਨ ਐਵਰੀ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ EMPLOYEES ਕਾਸਟ ਐਵਰੀਵੇਅਰ ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਸੀਮਸ ਲਾਈਕ this will stay like a deficit budget plus ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਂਡ ਤੇ ਕੁਐਸਚਨ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਟੈਂਟੇਟਿਵਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ 'ਚ ਡੇਟ ਆ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸੈੱਟ ਡੇਟ ਆ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਹੋਊਗਾ CJ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਰਿਪੋਰਟਿੰਗ ਫਰਮ ਗ੍ਰੈਂਡ ਤਾਜ ਸਰੀ ਬ੍ਰਿਟਿਸ਼ ਕੋਲੰਬੀਆ